A strange disease spreads over the world in 2013, making people afraid to walk outside for no good reason. If they do, they die in a few seconds. In a short time, the streets of every city and town in the world will be empty, with no one outdoors. Marc Delgado has been living at work for 3 months. He eats cafeteria food and helps his co-workers construct a tunnel in the parking lot that leads to the subway. One day, he sees that someone broke into a car and stole a GPS. The incident makes him very upset and makes him dig more violently. This is a good thing since he helps them break down the wall and discover a safe path out of the building. Marc can't help but notice that one of his superiors, Enrique, has the GPS in his backpack while everyone else is getting ready to depart and waiting in a queue for some supplies. Marc decides to follow him and talk to him about it. Enrique agrees to talk to him in private as long as Marc doesn't tell anybody else. Marc begins to recollect how he first met Enrique. The man was hired to fix the company's productivity issues many months ago. He was known for being harsh with staff and terminating them without hesitation if he thought it was necessary. He brought Marc into his office and yelled at him for taking so long on the project. He wouldn't listen to Marc's excuses about how challenging programming is, and he told him he had to be done by the end of the month or he would lose his job. Marc worked on his code in the workplace till late at night, getting more and more angry every time it didn't work. Marc's girlfriend Julia called him to say that she and her friend Andrea were shutting their store. Marc assured Julia that he would be there for dinner, but his computer broke up and he had to remain longer than he had intended. He saw that his neighbor had opened the door to let him in when he eventually got home, and his partner had already eaten dinner without him. He finds her producing toys for her store, and while she is gazing at a puppet she wants to keep for the future, she brings up the idea of having a baby. Marc says he doesn't think it's the right time. He couldn't sleep later that night, so he turned on the TV. The story was about a Canadian adolescent who recorded his own death after being afraid to leave his residence for 6 months. The next morning at work, everyone was watching the same clip, which made Marc's co-worker Rivera depart the area in a hurry. Another co-worker said he hadn't showered or changed clothing in days. Marc informs Enrique that he wants to find his girlfriend. He says that the GPS is the only method to get around the tube tunnels because phones don't work there anymore. He tells Enrique that if he takes Marc to see his fiancée, he will give him all the things he took from Rivera's locker. At first, Enrique says no, but when Marc threatens to inform everyone about the stolen GPS, Enrique changes his mind very quickly. The two men say goodbye to their comrades and then descend into the underground tunnels. The GPS is working properly, but they keep it off to save battery life. For now, they are using a tube map. There are a lot of people down there already, and they can even hear gunfire. They speed up till they get to the station, which is packed with survivors from wall to wall. A teen suddenly snatches Enrique's bag, which has a GPS in it. He and Marc start running after him through the station, up the stairs, and even around a fire until they reach a spot behind the turnstile. The boy joins 3 men. One of them is his brother, a former cop who has a gun. The cop makes them kneel down as his brother finds the GPS in the backpack. Then he approaches closer to collect Marc's bag as well, as the city outside finally loses all its power. When the lights go out in the station, Enrique lunges on the cop and fights him for the pistol. At the same time, Marc attacks the child and gets the GPS back when it falls on the floor and breaks its screen. Marc flees behind a column with the bag in his arms. Enrique gets the gun from the cop and murders him, then shoots his buddy, wounding him as well. Then he runs away with Marc, and the darkness that has taken over the place makes it easy for them to blend in with the crowd. They stop by the stairs to put a bandage on Enrique's hand and see if the GPS is still working after it fell. Luckily it is. Marc worries Enrique is going to leave him behind when he sees him with a gun, but Enrique assures him he will keep his end of the arrangement. Marc begins to remember the days before the lockdown. One morning, as he was leaving his apartment to go to work, he heard a lot of flies in his neighbor's apartment and saw that the door was open. He stepped inside to investigate what was going on. He saw that the whole flat was full of rubbish bags and smelt so bad that it made him cough. His neighbor found him and stabbed him with a knife, asking why he had come inside when he had never shown any interest in him before and didn't even know his name. Marc asked him how long he had been inside, and the man answered that he hadn't left the flat in months. He wanted to, but he was too terrified to. Later, Marc went to work and witnessed security guards dragging Rovira away after he was dismissed for sleeping in the office and not going home. Marc followed them outside while Rovira fought back as hard as he could, but it didn't work. The guards took him outside, and he started to convulse right away. Marc had an idea of what was going on, so he asked the guards to assist him in getting back inside, but it was too late. Rovira was already dead. Marc looked in Rovira's locker later and found a lot of survival gear, such as a torch, a gas canister, and canned food. Later that night, he informed Julia what had transpired and how he thought it was serious. Julia calmed him down, and they had sex. Marc wakes up from a nap and doesn't see Enrique anywhere. He fears Enrique has left him, but Enrique soon shows up with a plastic bag he got to keep the GPS safe from water damage. Marc and the other man go back to the underground tunnels, where Marc tries to find out what or who is waiting for Enrique at his destination. Enrique won't tell him. He also sees that Enrique keeps the seeds from everything he eats, such apples. A little while later, they found an entry to the sewers with the help of the GPS. They jumped in and didn't get wounded because the water cushioned their landing. They used the GPS again to get about, and in the end, they get at the area below Marc's apartment building. They develop a simple strategy to get inside. They hang the gas canister from a ceiling pipes and fire it with a gun to make it explode. Marc takes over after Enrique misses his shot. Marc too misses his first try, and the noise makes his ear bleed. But when he tries again, he hits the target, and the explosion sends him back to the ground. Enrique helps him get up, and they both climb over the debris and through the hole to get into the building, which is also full with migrants, exactly like the station. Marc's previous neighbor still lives in the same flat, but the lock on the door to Marc's flat is broken. Marc is angry when he sees an eye peering at him through the spy hole. He starts yelling and pushing the door, which a man speaking a foreign language is holding back. Marc bites the man's exposed hand, which makes him step back and lets Marc eventually enter his home. The man threatens them with a knife, and Enrique pulls out his revolver in response. They reach a stalemate until the man's wife and daughter arrive. The small girl speaks their language and tells them that they took the flat since it was empty and they had nowhere else to go. Marc informs the two men that the place is his and takes a picture of Julia from the wall to see whether they've seen her. They claim that there was no one there when they got there. They looked about the place after that. Enrique doesn't find any food in the fridge, but he does find dead doves being ready to eat. He also finds an old popcorn bag in the trash can and removes the seeds from it. He also takes a kitchen knife with him. Marc goes to Julia's work table and finds her puppet. He then picks up a drawing the little girl made and turns the paper over when he sees the name of a doctor in the corner. It's a picture of an ultrasound because Julia has been pregnant since the last time he saw her and he didn't know it. Marc begins to go back to the last time they were together. They were watching the news about the epidemic, which they called the panic, and it was killing more and more people all across the world. Marc was angry when the government told people to stay calm and keep going about their daily lives as usual. When the news changed to show pregnant ladies giving birth in terrible conditions, his attitude got worse. He started to rant about how irresponsible it all was, which made Julia finally realize that he never really wanted kids, and all the explanations he had told her over the years were just excuses. She was so upset that she hurried to the toilet and closed the door. Marc tried to talk to her through the door, but she didn't listen. He departed for work then. He could already see that there weren't many people on the streets and that the rubbish was stacking up in the cans. A man on the tube was even wearing a mask. He contacted Julia when he got to the workplace, but Andrea answered the phone and told him that Julia didn't want to talk to him just now. Marc was getting frantic and decided to go back, especially after both the phone and the TVs in the area lost their connection. But as soon as he went outdoors, he got sick and had to hurry back inside and stay there for good. Now that it's raining, Marc and Enrique help the family get water by utilizing an old stretcher. Soon, everyone in the city is using sticks to put pots and buckets beneath the rain to fill up their water supply. Enrique makes 2 spears out of broomsticks in the evening, while Marc fills several bottles with the water they just got. He also puts Julia's puppet in his luggage. In the morning, they go back into the sewers. When they come to a fork in the road, they debate about which way to go. Marc wants to go to the mall where Julia used to work to see if she's there, but Enrique says no. He says his job was merely to transport Marc to his flat, and it's not his fault Julia wasn't there when they got there. He even pulls out his knife to protect himself and wonders out loud if Julia is still alive. This makes Marc very angry, and he jumps on him to beat him up. Enrique drops the knife during the fight, and Marc drops the torch, which breaks as it hits the floor. Marc and Enrique break up the fight, and Marc wants to know what Enrique has that is more important than his wife and kid. Finally, Enrique admits that he wants to travel to the hospital where his father has been residing since he had an embolism and lost the ability to move. He also assures Marc that he can go with him because the GPS would be his once he gets to the hospital. Marc agrees after a little bit of thinking. They find some stairs that lead them into a church. They locate a lighter and a hip flask with alcohol in it as they are wandering about. They use these 2 things and some wood to make a fire. It sounds like the light has caught someone's attention, for they hear some noises close and grab their spears to check out. They are really surprised to find a bear in the back of the chapel, and it rapidly starts after them. Marc is almost to the stairs that lead to the sewer when he sees that Enrique has fallen, and the bear is on top of him. He then chooses to stay and help. He prods the animal with his spear to get it away from Enrique, who runs back to their camp and lights a torch to keep the bear away. But this isn't enough. The bear is getting closer and driving them toward the doors that lead outside. So Marc comes up with a plan. He tells Enrique to drop the torch, and when he does, the creature jumps on him. Marc meets him with his spear pointed at him, which makes the bear stab itself. When they see a tag that states the bear came from a Barcelona zoo, both men can't help but giggle. In a few minutes, they are enjoying the bear flesh they cooked over the fire. Enrique thanks Marc for not running away with the GPS and says that before everything happened, he would have fired him even if he had done the assignment on time. But this confession just makes them laugh again. Enrique also says he's scared that no one will notice if he dies without his father, and there are still some crucial things he needs to talk to him about. Marc tells him that he told Julia he didn't want kids, but that wasn't completely true. He was only frightened he wouldn't be able to take care of and protect the kid, and that concern has only become worse since then. A few hours later, they go back to the sewers and see a family coming from the other way. They instruct them to go to the hospital with them, but one of them is hurt. They say that Enrique's father's hospital has burnt down, which is horrible news. Enrique is so scared that he runs to the nearest door and goes inside a building. He climbs the stairs until he gets to a floor high enough to see the city and confirm the rumors. The hospital has burnt down. Enrique breaks the window with furniture and gets ready to jump, but Marc forces him back inside and tells him he needs him. Enrique doesn't agree, so he gives Marc the seeds for his future baby and tells him to go. Marc finally gets to the mall after walking via the sewers again. He enters through a parking lot full of bodies. He runs to Julia's business, ignoring the feeling that someone is following him, but all he finds is Andrea's mother's body. He gets really frantic and goes through all the papers and journals, but he doesn't find anything that helps, so he tosses everything on the ground in disgust and cries until he sees something in the mirror. He finds a note from Andrea for her mother after he cleans off the dust. It says that they are stranded in the mall's supermarket section. Marc rushes to that section, which has been blocked off so that people leaving upstairs can't steal food from them anymore. Marc pulls out a picture he brought from his flat and tells the men guarding them that he doesn't want trouble. He just wants to find his love. One of the men walks to the rear to check on Julia, who is with them, and as he waits, Marc spots some shadows moving behind him. A group of individuals who had been following him suddenly bursts out and takes advantage of the commotion Marc has caused to storm into the market and battle for the food. Marc goes into the market to hunt for Julia, but he finds Andrea instead. Both groups are fighting violently. She says that the last time she saw Julia was before she went to the clinic. After pushing out an attacker, she shows Marc the way to a nearby exit. But they get separated as a burning beam falls from the roof and blocks Andrea from getting to the outer world. She unlocks the doors and Marc tells her to go outside, but she can't bring herself to do it. She dies when more of the ceiling falls on her. Marc doesn't waste any time and starts fleeing the other way, but one of the insane raiders jumps on him. Enrique shows up just in time to save Marc from being stabbed. He pulls the attacker away and helps Marc up, saying that he knew he would still need him. The attacker hasn't left yet, and he soon rushes back to knife Enrique in the stomach. Enrique pulls him away again and is about to stab him with his spear when he sees that it's just a kid, so he lets him go. Enrique tells Marc they should rush out of the mall before the whole structure falls down. He acts like his wound isn't a huge concern and that he's all right. They cross the sewers again and again until they uncover a hole in the ceiling that someone else excavated. When they climb inside, they end up in a movie theater. Marc walks up to the glass door and sees that Julia's doctor's office is across the street. But he can't get to it this way since the tunnel is blocked. He is so frantic that he climbs upstairs and peeks out the window to see if he can see Julia in the other building. He takes a minute, but he does spot her. When he does, he starts yelling her name and beating his window, hoping she'll see him too. At first, it looks like she'll never turn around, but Marc's plan works when Julia suddenly turns around and the two of them see each other again and cry with joy. Marc runs downstairs to tell Enrique about Julia, but when he gets there, he finds Enrique sitting in the theater bleeding. He seeks to find something to wrap the wound with, but Enrique won't let him, saying that his time has come. He asks Marc to quit whining and cross the street to be with his family for good in his last words. Enrique dies, and Marc cries for him for a moment before doing what he said. Enrique and Julia both make it to their doors, and after a little while, Enrique eventually goes outside. He starts to feel ill and disoriented right away. His ears start to bleed, and he has problems walking. He keeps going, though, by keeping his eyes on Julia. After he falls, he crawls the rest of the way, with just a dazzling white light around him. Suddenly, Julia's face appears above him. As the light fades, Marc realizes that he has safely crossed the street and reached the building, where he will finally be with his girlfriend. The couple stays in that building and creates a new life there, gathering rainwater and nurturing Enrique's seedlings. Their son is born strong and healthy, and when he learns to walk, he goes outdoors by himself. This shows that the terror doesn't affect the new generation. A group of roaming teens comes to their door many years later. Marc and Julia decide to let their kid join them, so he may see what the outside world is like and maybe even help rebuild civilization from the ground up. To see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and enable on notifications. Thanks for watching.